Hey everyone, how you going? I have a really important question to ask you. You come at the perfect time. I've got these two bananas here and I'm trying to decide, is bigger better? You know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter. I may not be able to decide if bigger is better when it comes to my two banana friends down there, but one thing's for sure when it comes to Dragon Quest Builders, and that is bigger is better. And Dragon Quest Builders 2 is bigger and better in every single way. Ever since I first got whiffed that we were going to be getting Dragon Quest Builders 2, I've not been able to keep my nose out of it. It has just been in every little bit of information that has come out about this. And since I did that first video, more information has come forth and presented itself to me. And so today, I just want to share some of that new information that we got, as well as some of this new stuff that I've learned from just being around this game and sniffing around the block. Now, before I get into all this new information that I have, which I have to say is extra juicy, like that first one, that was full of juice, but this one, you might be able to sink your teeth even deeper into it. There's that much new information here that I've got to go over, and it's really important stuff that I know a bunch of you want to know. But before I do get into it, I just want to make sure that anyone coming into this new that they're aware that there may be some spoiler territory around here. Nothing to do with like story or anything like that. But if you're extra sensitive to just learning information about stuff, you've been warned. Alrighty, so as of the end of January, a bunch new kind of stuff got added to the game. And to kind of understand some of that stuff, like the first thing I want to talk about here is Cultivation Island. We need to understand a little bit more about the game and the way it works, because since I talked about it last, I've kind of understood a little bit more about how the game is structured. So you might remember the first game was structured around chapters. So you did a chapter, then everything reset, you had a completely new chapter and you lost everything. This one's structured a little bit differently than that, which I know a lot of you are gonna be happy about. It's structured around islands. So the way it's gonna work is, I don't know if any of you have played the demo, but you instantly know that the first island you go to is Vacant Island. Actually, you probably wouldn't know that because unless you can speak Japanese, you would have no idea. Anyway, the first island you go to is called Vacant Island. And this island, it basically acts like your hub world. A majority of the stuff that you're gonna be doing as you kind of go around the game to these other islands is bringing stuff, bringing people back to this island, your kind of main deal, your main game. So if this is your hub world, you might be wondering what the other islands are. Well, they break into kind of categories. So you kind of have a story category, which the islands that you're going to go to, they're big islands, you're going to center around a story. And then you're going to go into like ones that are just called Gathering Islands. And then Cultivation Island is the one that's been added lately. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to jump through some of these ones. I'm going to start with the story ones. So I'll leave a timestamp down below if you don't want to see what any of the story ones look like. Again, we're not going to go through any story, but if you don't even want to know what they look like, timestamp, I'll leave it on the screen even, and you can just jump straight to the next part. Then this will only be a quick dive through them. If you want more details, Gamatsu have gone into detail a little bit more with each one of these. But as for a quick dive, the first one here is called Monzolo. Pardon my French, it's called Monzola. This is your farming and your kind of greenery area island, based around kind of logs and all that type of deal you kind of get here from the screenshots. And then next up we have Oculum, which at first glance this looks like a really boring deserty type area. But the most interesting part of this one is it has these gorgeous underground areas that like this water kind of flowing down everywhere, and this kind of gold mine, or everything looks kind of golden area. And then last of all, we have Endless Battle Island. So this is like your snowy type of area, and you're going to be trying to build this big fort and kind of capture this big fort and then defend it from incoming monsters. And it's centered around like a lot of different traps and different stuff like that you're going to be getting. As usual, the story seems to be based around, I don't know, a bunch of depressed people that you have to come in there and do some farming and do some mining and raise their spirits. Come on, Dragon Quest people! As the people who skipped ahead rejoin us, welcome back everyone, we will move on to what the material islands are. Now these are really quite interesting because these are a little bit different. They're not based around a story or anything like that. They're called material islands for a reason. You're going to be gathering materials from these. There seem to be quite a few scattered around from the look of the world map. And I think the most interesting part about these islands, apart from just a great source of like all your rare materials and stuff like that, is that they kind of have like a collection chart, which if you know, like, I don't know, I do this comparison all the time, but you know, Stardew Valley had this community center that, I did this, I think on the very last video, where you could fill up the slots of all the different items. Basically, when you go to this island, if you collect enough of each material and deposit these materials into this chart, you unlock a way to have unlimited amounts of some materials. Not all materials, just some. I'll put a little chart here on screen so you can kind of see that as they're ticking off all these boxes, I think that's what they're trying to achieve, is collecting all of these materials, and then they might get, let's say, unlimited wood or unlimited, just some basic like straw or some item that you need a lot of. That doesn't really cost much, but it's a bit annoying to always be going out and getting it. Oh, Oh yeah, and the way the unlimited system works is you need to go to like a workbench and then you just simply craft it. So you can literally just craft wood out of no materials, or craft whatever out of no materials. Okay, I realize I've done something pretty dumb here. I'd mentioned at the start, the first thing I want to jump into is Cultivation Island, and then now we're finally jumping into Cultivation Island. But we're going to get into it because this is the really cool new addition to the game. Basically what it is an island that you create yourself. Now, you can't do this until you have finished the game, but once you've finished the game, you're all the way through it, you can create your own island. Not like to shape it yourself or anything. I suppose you can when you're on it, but what you're going to do is you go to a menu screen, you get to decide the size of your biome, what type of biome it is, like whether you want it to be the tree one or the I don't know what other type of freezing one, whatever type of biomes they have. You can see the chart here, you can select from the different types. And then what it does is it randomly generates a big island for you just to go create and do your own thing on without all the other stuff that's kind of focused around the story that you've already done. Your own personal island, do whatever you want on here. And I think one of the most interesting things here is that they state you can bring items back from this island, so this island that you just randomly generated, back to your other game and back to your, what's the island called? Vacant Island. And what's important about that is that means that they've stated you can bring items back from that island, Cultivation Island. They stated that you can bring items back from the Gathering Islands, and so I'm going to be assuming that all of these islands are interconnected, and you can just take items back and forth between them. The only one that they haven't confirmed, and that if anyone confirms this stuff for me, I will have a comment going down below of just updates that anyone's let me know of stuff that they know. But yeah, the only thing they haven't confirmed is whether these other big story islands that I've talked about, whether you can bring stuff to and from them. And that's my only worry, is that they might have some sort of story reason that you can't take stuff until maybe you've even finished the island. I don't know the deal with that one, so I just don't want to guarantee any details until I know, but it does look like everything is just interchangeable between islands. Now that we've gone through all the island types, there's one really important thing that we can now touch on, and that's multiplayer and the way that it works with these different islands, because I know a lot of people are wondering, well, how does multiplayer work? Can I play this whole game multiplayer? Or are you just like locking me off to a certain area or mode and saying like, hey, children, play in this playpen over there? And so I think we finally understand the way this kind of works. First of all, on Vacant Island, after progressing a certain amount through it, which I'm guessing is completing the story for that island, you unlock, what's it called? Multiplayer mode. It's exactly what I'm talking about. I shouldn't be struggling with that. So now we know that on Vacant Island, you can play multiplayer, but what about everything else? Well, they've also confirmed that the material islands can be played in multiplayer. So you can go gather items with your friends and buddies and pals and mates, and gather items from the material islands and bring them back to Vacant Island to all play together. So what about the other big story islands? Well, they haven't confirmed them yet. I'm just not sure about them. All I'm thinking here is, since you had to progress like a certain amount through the Vacant Island before unlocking multiplayer, it may be the same with these other islands. Simply put, you can't do the story or anything to do with the story with multiple players because the game hasn't been built around that. However, once you finish the story on all of these different places, then it unlocks. Then you can go run wild, run free, take a breath of the wild air, fresh. No, drop that one. Now, the only one that I didn't mention here was Cultivation Island, and that's because they've said they're bringing multiplayer and inhabitants, so like the people of the other islands. They're saying that in the future, you'll be able to bring your friends and these people over to that island. But for now, it seems like it's just a single player only island. You can't have those people on there. So since this is coming feature, I'm assuming when it comes out in Japan, and since we normally get the full version of the game, I hope, I have a feeling that should be in there. But like, again, that's stuff that we'll just have to confirm when it comes out. Now, I touched on the inhabitants before, and didn't touch the inhabitants, I touched on the inhabitants and mentioned that you could bring them back to your vacant island. So when you're doing like main story quests in other places, you're bringing them all back to your starting kind of island if you want to, because you can dismiss them back to their starting island as well. You're basically kind of choosing and building your own island and who you want to be there. Now, I'm going to read off an interesting quote here because it seems that you can actually make your own inhabitants or like choose who you want to be there. Let me read the quote and then go into it. You can make an island of randomly generated inhabitants, or even go all out and make an island full of nothing but male bunnies. Male bunnies? First of all, I don't know what that's all about, but that sounds cool. I want to know if I can make an island of just all slime inhabitants, because the old game you had like slime friends. I want some slime friends. I want my island just to be all slimes. But that sounds cool that you can either like randomly generate people or just make your own thing of just all this certain type of inhabitants, as they like to call them. I'm sick of saying the word inhabitants. Another thing that I've actually learned since talking about this game last is the way the bulletin board works. So this is basically a place where you take photos, snapshots in the game, and then you can upload these photos to this bulletin board where people on either PS4 or Switch can see the photos, they can vote on them, they can give them a thumbs up if they like them, and they can do even the wink. No, they can't do the wink, that's just me. But they can give them a thumbs up, and then like you can see the most voted or the highly voted pictures on this board. But what makes this board interesting is there's like a kind of terrain mode where you can upload a picture, and if people like that picture, they can jump into that world where that picture, where that literal picture exists, so whatever you've made exists, and they can go copy the blueprint. So there's usually this thing called the builder's pencil. Builder's pencil. Didn't need to do that twice. And what this builder's pencil actually does is you can kind of trace around something. So you decide the diameter of it, and then it will clone that area of whatever like cube you've made. And you can bring that blueprint of whatever you've just cloned into your own game to then build up yourself and make the exact same thing, which is really cool. Like if you see something, you're like, I want to make that, jump into that world, copy that blueprint and bring it back to your own. Which really helps me touch on another point about the blueprints is that your inhabitants can help you build stuff. They can help you build these blueprints. So what you can actually do now is you can basically put down a blueprint, say this is the shape of the stuff. And if you ever played the original game, you know how that kind of works. It shows you everything and where it all goes and literally lays out a big grid for you with everything there. But then the other really helpful feature with this one is that your inhabitants, if you put a chest in front of it, will go to the chest with the blueprint in it and say, I'm going to take whatever materials that fit this blueprint that you've put in that chest and just build it for you. You don't have to do anything. They're just going to build you big blueprints. Like apparently they say they're massive. So I don't know how big, but like that sounds really cool. Like, I don't have to do all the work. Put them to work for me. Now, speaking of the inhabitants, or as I'm going to start calling them NPCs, apparently since the end of January update that they did, they now have new blueprints for you to kind of check out and more dialogue options to talk to them. So I don't know the extent of that, but that's just more content into the game. That's good. One more thing that was added in that January update is Erdrick's Tailsman. So what this actually does is it stops monsters from spawning, and it has to be crafted, and it cannot be crafted until you finish the game. But it sounds like a really cool way if you just want to focus on building and you're sick of like things coming into your base and whacking you. You can just place this down and it will stop monsters from spawning in that area. You can in fact even stop them in an entire world area type thing, which they go into explain. You'll find out when you play the game. One last feature here that's actually really cool before I just quickly skip through a few more is the clear fog mode. Clear photo mode is what more accurately described as, is when you take the photos and your snapshots, there's obviously a fog depending on how far you are away from stuff. But with this new photo mode, what you can actually do is you just have a new filter that basically clears the fog, renders the fog not there. And you'll see the difference that I show on screen here, and it's actually quite cool. So for anyone looking at getting into photos, I think that'd be really good and important and helpful and fun, and probably not fun, but helpful. So the last thing I have here is like there's magnetic floors that seem to be like a platform that goes between two magnets to kind of almost create a bridge that you move automatically over. I don't know, I'm terrible at describing that. But there's also trampolines, which are much easier to describe. You basically bounce on them. And glass windows, which are really cool because you seem to be able to make like a tank of water if you wanted to. Like the glass windows actually attach to each other, so you can have a big clear pane, or and then like they showed it on here that you can just fill it with water. And then last of all, we have, I don't know if you remember the builder puzzles from the first one. So they're just puzzles that were scattered around the world, and you had to try to solve out what the riddle was or whatever they wanted you to solve. They make a return in this game, which is really cool because that was a great addition from the first game. That is going to do it for this big chunk of information that was way bigger than I thought we were going to end up going through today, but it was great. I caught you up on all this new information. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember, if you haven't seen that old video, I will leave a link to that in the description down below, everywhere that I can, so that you can go back and watch that one, because that's super interesting and super juicy as well. And I guess that I just want you to remember, for great Nintendo entertainment, you can count on me. So, I was going to come on here and talk about, for today's end screen, that my barber is closed and I need a haircut. It's getting a bit long and long for my liking anyway. But Nat wanted me to come on here and say that our little banana friends here, please don't vote between them. Love them equally. They're both just as adorable as each other. Yeah. Bye.